Okay, hello. Welcome to What Are Splines and How Do I Use Them? And we're going to talk about splines. So here is the logic that I've rigged up for splines. And we're going to go through it. And I'm just going to briefly explain what splines do, so what their purpose is, and then how you can make them do that. Now, a spline, especially in dreams, is a way of telling dreams where a curvy line is. And it's especially handy at really long curvy lines. So in mathematics, when you have a long curve, you would usually use something like a piece of a graphing function. And instead of doing that, when we use splines, you can add them onto the end of each other, and it's really, really efficient. It doesn't cost very much to calculate. So that means that we can have very, very long curvy lines, as if you put your pen to a paper and just sort of drawn a long squiggle. Um, and then obviously that can be used for anything. Your imagination can run wild there. Quite often you see them used as paths for animations or NPCs. You might see them for a minecart or for clouds drifting across the sky. You can make a template for a curved block. You can do anything. Grinding rail in a skateboarding game. That's a very, very common one. That's what splines are used for a lot. Yeah, all sorts of different things. So let's take a look at how they work in dreams. Let's move this one over here. Here is our main logic, and here is our control point. So inside the control point is nothing special. All we've got is a tag right in the center of the control point, and then we can grab that point at any point. Here is the main logic. Here's the most important stuff. Um, this one and this one we don't have to worry about for a second. So we're just going to take a look at these. Now, when we draw a spline, just like putting your pen to the paper, there's going to be a start and there's going to be an end. And then in between the start and the end, we're going to have a list of curves. And what I mean by curves are bends in the line. And we have to tell the computer where those bends are, and then my maths will turn it into something that dreams can understand, hopefully. Now, let's have a look at what we can do. Let's start here by dragging our node into first point, and then one into second point, and then one into third point. Really, really simple. Don't worry too much about T for a second. What we're going to do is take a look at these two outputs. So spline, this is going to be our main output. This is going to tell us where the curve is. And then info is going to allow us to talk to other microchips. So you'll see that other microchips have got an info input. And that's how we add on extra curves to our spline. So let's grab hold of some more shapes. We'll just clone these. These can be any old coordinates, but we're going to have a look at this shape here. So you always start with 3. You can't have a curve between 2 points. You've got to have a curve between 3. And what this shape's going to give us is a big arc like this. Okay? And we're going from the first one to the second one, which is the middle, and then to the third one over here. And you'll notice, because we're using a start chip, it will come directly from the first control point. So whatever the first control point is, our spline will start from the control point. It will then start to extend this way, but it won't make contact with either of these two. It won't go through those points. What these two control points do is tell the line that it should do a bend there. Not that it should go straight through them, but that it should do a bend. Okay? And we can see that if we hook ourselves up to the draw. And all this does is it emits stuff along the line. Maybe, if I can see them. I don't know where I've moved it now. Oh no, okay, that should be fine. It emits things along the line, but at the moment, it's not going to do anything when we press play. And the reason for that is T. So the line now actually exists. All it is a mathematical equation. So it does exist right now. It's right there, we just can't see it. And the way that we have to see it is by plotting different lengths along the curve. So if T is 0, in fact, let's get ourselves a number slider here. If T is 0, then we'll get an output from Spline right at the very start of this curve here. And you can see that's being drawn. And then if I turn it up by 0.1, and 0.2, and 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, and you can see there is, in actual fact, a curve there. And we can draw that probably with a little more ease if I grab myself a timer and do this. So now you can see a little better where the curve is. And we can influence that in real time. That's something else that's really, really handy about this technology, is that we can move any of these points at playtime, including using keyframes or other logic. We can make changes to the path for whatever reason. If your NPC sees something with a higher priority, you can send them in another direction. And it will always move in a smooth manner. So this pink line here, although it doesn't always appear to be smooth when I'm moving things, it's not the line itself, it's just drawing where the line is. Okay? So now we've got a start splining. Really, really cool. That's the first step done. Let's grab ourselves another node and then plug ourselves in a new point. And of course, we're not starting the spline anymore, we're adding a point. So we're going to add a point, and what that's going to do is draw a curve through these three. And it will start there, and it will end halfway between these two. Okay? So we've got to make sure they can talk to each other. We plug in our info. This is how we let these two chips know that they're on the same curve. And then new point. But right now, it doesn't appear to be doing anything. So where's our curve? Even if we plug spline in, we're not going to get anything from it. Now this is a quirk about how splines work. If we are giving this chip, T, of 0 to 1, 0 to 1, that's what this timer outputs, the next chip will have to be 1 to 2. So let's take a look at that. Let's change this one down to 2 seconds. And instead of taking the timer output, we can take the current time from 1 to 2. And now we have a lovely smooth curve. And we can continue to do this. We can add another node. We can, let's go this way this time. We can come down here, stick that one on, just clone, add a point, make sure they can talk to each other, add the new point, and then draw the spline. But of course we need to change this one here up to 3. And there we go. Let's put them further that way a little bit. Isn't that nice? Now, to finish off a spline, simple as anything, end spline. It does what it says on the tin. So let's bring this one over here, add the next point, and then you can see here we've got last point in the spline, and make sure they can talk to each other. Draw the spline, and then don't forget that we've got another control point we added in. So we want to draw it all the way up to number 4, and that'll be us. It goes right up to the last control point. Oh, why is this not reset? Okay. There we go. Isn't that cool? So, you'll notice a little quirk about splines again is that they come from the first and they also go through the last. Now, earlier on I mentioned that it doesn't go through any other control points, but it will go through the last one. Same as you writing on a page, drawing the squiggly line. Of course, your pen's going to go through the last point. We have to tell the computer where the last point is. Now, you can probably imagine a couple of things you could do with this. It's very, very handy. But you also might be thinking, oh, there's things that I would like to know about how they work. And what I'll do is, after this video, I will make another video where we go through the mathematics behind all of this so that there could be more options that you could play with. But something else I've rigged up for now is a looped spline. Okay? Now these things are really, really good at making smooth, continuous loops that we can play with. And this is something that hasn't really been done in Dreams before. So as you can see, this is start looped. And we can just swap this out for start spline. So let's stop time here. Cut these ones out. And then just insert our start looped. We'll hook up spline and we'll hook up info. And of course, we need to give a value for t. But then we've got another one, which is loop close info. Now, because we're making a closed loop, so it's all of these things moving together, what we need to do is let the first one know where the end is, and the end one where the first one is. So once we've snipped in the loop close spline chip, which we can do very, very quickly, you'll see that we have one more output, and that will go into our one more input. Okay. And now, if we just run this a second, that's not good. What's going on there? Are we giving it the right parameters? Ah, wrong one. If we just run this a second, we'll notice that it's not looped. It's not looping at all. What's going on there? Well, very, very simple. Because a loop adds a couple of more arcs to complete the loop, what we need to do is increase this. So you add 2 more to t. So however many control points there are, that's how many arcs there are going to be in the loop. So we have to make sure that our t goes from 0 to however many control points. So 6 in this case. And of course that gives us a lovely smooth loop. Look at this. Isn't that cool? And again, we can change that at runtime. We can make somebody, perhaps a security guard, go on a control path or patrol path. Yeah, or dodgems at the fun fair. They could be going around in little loops. It's really handy for animation of stuff. Yeah, that is the basis of how splines work. And of course, instead of a draw function, what you would do is add yourself a node, and then you can give any t value to this spline. These chips here are essentially what makes up the spline. And of course, your output you could then give to a follower, which you'll see in some demos that I've rigged up in a second. Or you could give it to, I don't know, perhaps somewhere to look. If you want a character to look in a certain direction, you give a look at rotator. You could I don't know, whatever your heart desires, whatever your heart desires. So let's take a look at some examples I've rigged up. Now, don't get scared off too quickly, because they're not as complicated as they look. So let's move our little man here. He seems to be stuck, doesn't he? I did have a little man walking across a spline, but it doesn't appear that he wants to do that now. What's going on with you, buddy? Why are we stuck? Ah, okay. Let's have a look. Let's put him here. Okay. We'll put him there. So, there we go. He's walking across our spline. And we'll move this one here down again, because that was a bit silly of me. You can see, as he goes around, he does these nice, smooth turns. Quite sweet, isn't he? And, of course, these are all invisible at playtime. So here's the cue for the roller coaster that we can see over there. And he's getting in line. Really, really simple to implement this one. Let's take a look at the logic inside of him. All we've got is a follower. I've played around with these settings a little bit just to make sure that it doesn't look too funny. And we just plug it into target position. That's the spline output there. And of course we can draw the spline behind him if you wanted to see that. It might be visible. Yeah, there we go. So you can see this is the path here that he's taking. And then after you've told your puppet to do this follower, you could then say, okay, do an animation for the ticket booth. Or go back to the start, do another loop. Whatever you so want. So let's close these down and take a look at the slightly more complicated one in the back here. This is the roller coaster that I've rigged up. We've got some nice smooth curves. And you can see there's different speeds going on here. There's nice smooth track being laid down. And it might look a little bit daunting, but it's really not that bad. So this block here is laying down the track. And what we've got here is a piece of the track. So inside we've got again a follower set to a certain speed. I think this one's max speed, and then we've also got a rocket rotator, which tells the block to obviously rotate towards the beginning of the curve of the spline. And then what that's going to do is when we draw this, which is actually linked up to the track, you can see that as the cube turns, it draws the track facing the direction that the cube is, which leaves these lovely smooth turns as it draws. Really handy. Now you do get a bit of a wonky one at the start. You do get one or two as the rocket rotator begins to power up, but that could be fixed in a couple of other ways. This is just a very rough and ready example. Okay. And of course, for a track mine cart, it does look a bit like a mine cart. I tried to make a coaster trailer, but it didn't go particularly well. It just does exactly the same thing. It's just I duplicated the spline over here, boop, like this. This whole roller coaster costs about 9%, which isn't too bad, all things considered. It's got about 30 different control points, so that's kind of cool. And it really is start looped spline, and then 30 control points, and then end looped spline. Although you'll notice, because we're doing a loop here, I've taken a timer that goes to 10,000 seconds, so that's a very long time. Nobody's going to be in your scene for that long. And then all I've done is remainder after division by 30. So every time this reaches a multiple of 30, it loops back around to 0, 0 to 30. Very, very smooth transition using that. And then, yeah, so the different speeds are controlled by this. So this one's double the speed because I'm doing remainder after division by 15, and then I'm doubling it. So in the time it takes to do 1 second, this one has moved 2. So the track is drawn at twice the speed that the minecart is drawn. And you'll see they cross over at the same threshold here. By the time the cart has done 1 loop here, that the track drawer has done 2. And of course the track drawer doesn't ever draw more pieces than it needs to, and it draws them in exactly the same place. So once the track has been drawn the first time, your observer will not be able to tell the difference. And it looks quite nice, actually. Quite like the way that looks. Isn't it quite pretty? And you'll see it crosses over there. And these get fixed because of the emitter limit. And that would be it. That would be your roller coaster all set up. So for simple things like that, it really is just plug and play. It did take me about half an hour to like plug these in, but they just work. So well, once it's there, it just works. So I'm hope you enjoyed this demo and brief explanation on how to plug in your splines and make things follow them. And yeah, thanks for watching. Cheers.